and welcome to KJ's Kitchen. I am KJ. I'm now 15 years a master level fitness trainer, a fitness nutrition specialist, and most important to me, I am a happy mom serving up healthy meals from my kitchen to yours every Wednesday here on Facebook on the Get KJ Fit fan page. If you'd like to check me out on Instagram, go ahead and use @GetKJFit for that handle. You'll find me over there too. So we are now in November, and I know it's been a pretty stressful week already, and the stress isn't over yet, right? It's a pretty tough time for the world, the climate of the world. So my blessing to everyone that there may be some peace of heart, peace of mind with you during this whole week, possibly into next, and that no matter what is going on in our world, in our nation, and with our presidency, that everyone unite. That is the only way we all can work together. So that is my blessing and wish to everybody. Before we get started, I want to talk about this amazing dish that is not only nourishing, low carb. I know everyone loves that word, low carb, but it's a great creative way of using up some of your winter squash, fall squash, winter squash. Someone correct me in the comments below. I don't know the difference because I don't grow a garden, but I was blessed to get more harvest from my mom's garden because my beautiful Aunt Helen visited a couple weeks ago and brought me a box of pumpkin, butternut squash, spaghetti squash, and acorn squash. So if you're not familiar with acorn squash, it's the dark green one, bright orange on the inside, and they're usually smaller. They even get wider. These ones are on the small side. So I've got myself 2 acorn squash. I've already cut them right in half. They go like this, right? Cut it right in half. I cut the ends off a little bit, skim off the ends. You might even create a little hole. Oopsie, it's not gonna change anything. You're still golden. And you wanna de-seed them with a little spoon. Now I've got my oven preheated because I don't wanna take up too much time here for 375. I've got a baking sheet with parchment paper. I'm setting these squash on this pan here. I am simply, very simple, going to use my olive oil and drizzle. This is the word, drizzle. I actually have to put my finger on my olive oil or it will like pour out. Drizzle olive oil into each of these squash. I like it to be a little on the top, a little to the inside. Whatever drips to the inside is gonna make a small, tiny little pool. I mean, probably like a 1/4 teaspoon, maybe max 1/2 teaspoon, into there. I'm just gonna wipe my finger on here. I realize I don't have a towel. That might be helpful. Wipe my finger on a towel here. Okay, so I'm talking simplicity. If you've never baked squash, easiest way is heavily salt. I say heavily because salt really brings forward the beauty of a vegetable. You're gonna get a lot more flavor when you're salting your vegetables. And then some pepper. I use fresh black cracked pepper. You could do ground pepper, however you dig it. And just, to your preference. And that is it. My oven's already preheated. So I'm gonna pop these puppies in on the middle rack. And you're gonna set your timer for about 30 minutes. Dinner is gonna be done in 40 minutes time. Cool, 30 minutes in the oven. While that's cooking, I'm showing you what we're gonna do to these. And then we finish them off 10 more minutes in the oven. So pop these puppies in, middle rack. I don't know who you talk to in your house, but we've got the Alexa, smart whoever that is. We changed her name to Echo. Echo, set timer, 30 minutes.
30 minutes, starting now.
Okay, while that's cooking, let's get to the good stuff. Get yourself your cast iron pan. I love this big old 14-incher. You could do a smaller pan. It's not gonna take up that much space. Hit the heat to about a medium high, and then your choice of oil. The olive oil is sitting right here. You could do avocado oil, olive oil. You could do any of your favorite mindful oils. And just enough to get a thin coat on the pan. That might be max like 2 tablespoons max, maybe not even that much. And I pre-chopped before you got here, one small to medium, one average. Can we call that average? Small to medium? Sweet onion. I cut it so I didn't have to cry on you. I like to pre-cut that. And I did 2 cloves of garlic, fresh clove garlic, chopped up nice and small. I have found recently that the garlic is making me tear up even more than the onions. Anyone else ever have that problem? I've always been like, oh, onions make me cry. Well, they do, but I've noticed garlic is making me cry a whole lot more pungent or something, or I don't know if it's just a reaction in my body. So this pan's getting nice and hot. I can already feel the heat. And I'm going to get my onions translucent and sauteing. It might be around 3-4 minutes. Okay, I'm spreading them out thin on the pan and getting that cooking. While my onions are browning and getting translucent, I'm gonna make a delicious seasoning blend. KJ way, all right? This seasoning blend is what's going to bring so much flavor to this dish without all the calories, okay? So we're bringing such a very front forward flavor profile. Super excited. Starting off with paprika. Not super flavorful, but nice and colorful. Because this dish could be made with a ground beef if you prefer, but we really like to be gentle to our gut. Beef is not so easy to digest. Whether you think you love it or not, you probably aren't noticing what it's doing to your digestion if you keep it in your body regularly. But it's really harder to digest than white meats. So today I'm using a ground turkey, and with that ground turkey, that's a little more than a tablespoon. Oopsie. Well, eyeballing everything, right? There's a tablespoon of paprika. With this ground turkey, turkey's boring. And even if you're doing beef and you decide beef is better for you, or even ground chicken, you're gonna wanna flavor it and season it up regardless. But I'm doing this intentionally because ground turkey is boring. So we're gonna do 1.5 teaspoons of salt. My salt preference is this pink stuff, pink Himalayan sea salt, because it provides more minerals than your regular sea salt or your table salt. Your, what is that called? Iodized, I can't even say it. Iodine salt. So that's that. That was 1.5 teaspoons of salt, but you're covering two acorn squash and all of this meat I'm gonna be putting in there. 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. We've got our organic by Simply Nature. This is an Aldi's find. My 1 teaspoon doesn't fit in there so well, so I'm just doing 2.5 teaspoons. So you know it's still 1 teaspoon. And then I'm gonna go for a 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. This is gonna add a little bit of heat, but nothing too much. I find this not to be a hot dish at all. And then we're talking fennel. If you don't know fennel and haven't been using fennel, it smells like black licorice, but it cannot promise you that it tastes like black licorice. If you've ever bought a sausage that's pre-made at a deli or, butcher shop where they're making delicious homemade sausage, even probably half the stuff in the store, including even pasta sauces, a lot of that has fennel in it. So don't shy away if you don't love fennel, because it's so good for your digestion. We're gonna do 3/4 of a teaspoon. So there's a 1/2, and here's a 1/4. Wish my daughter were in here. We'd be learning our math for homeschool today. What does 3/4 look like if you're using a 1/2 teaspoon? So that's 3/4. And then we're gonna do 3/4 as well of sage. So hearing and smelling all these, you would be reminded of, here's why I built it this way. Oh, sage is amazing. It reminds me of Thanksgiving. It reminds me of fall. So you might, again, find sage in a sausage. You definitely find sage in your, what do you call that, stuffing at Thanksgiving time. So we're gonna do 3/4 of dried sage. There's a 1/4, there's a 1/2. Boom. So it is the flavor profile in this, to me, does remind me of fall. Kind of like people relate pumpkin spice with fall. Sage, fennel, all these delicious herbaceous and earthy styled herbs remind me of fall just the same. I'm gonna stir this up My onions are looking nice and translucent. Let's see if I'm missing anything on my list. Salt, sage. Oh, I sure am, because it's not sitting out here. Beg my pardon. We're gonna go, and again, we're not talking heat. We're gonna go with crushed red pepper flakes. Yes, they're hot, but when you don't overdo them, they're only gonna provide a very subtle heat and a level of more flavor. Woo! Red pepper, red pepper. And I'm saying quarter teaspoon. This is what I'm saying, is very, very light touch of heat. Now I think I have completed my season profile. Let me take one more quick look just to be sure, and that's right. That's it. So your onions are browning. They look brown and gorgeous. Time to add in your 2 cloves of garlic. There we go. Give her a little stir around. Now, here's a nice little trick to do, because seasoning your starter veggies, whatever you want to call these, the prep veggies, the base, if I had onion in here, you'd even call it the Holy Trinity, I think. I mean peppers. Right there, I'm going to take the herb blend, the little seasoning, and shuffle them across all of the onion and garlic. And the oil. The oil's in there, don't get me wrong. And I'm just gonna get it on the pan, because this next minute that I'm gonna be getting that garlic roasted on here, I'm tossing it and coating it with the seasoning. That heat is going to bring forward a lot more flavor with these seasonings. So that is my suggestion. If you put your meat in here first and then dropped in your seasoning, you might end up with one big blob of meat that has tons of seasoning. And even though you chop it up and stir it up, it might not distribute very evenly. So right now, by putting the seasoning in with the onions and garlic, this has contributed to be a new 1 ingredient, right? I put it all together, so it's 1 ingredient. Now I'm gonna add in my turkey in 1 minute, letting that get a little cooked to smell good, release the flavors. Now, my turkey, if you've ever subscribed to KJ's Kitchen already, you know that meat in the regular section just ekes me out. I don't know how long it took to get from the farm to that store. I don't know how long it's been sitting on that store shelf. And I have seen some pretty horrifying, revealing videos of butchers explaining how a lot of that meat is so not fresh. They even take it to the back, slap it through blood, and put it back out for us. So I get super eked out by meat in general, just because I don't like to touch whatever, but I'm over it because I'm a mom. But more so if it comes fresh. So I buy frozen, and I love these frozen Kirkwood, I think is the brand, Kirkwood all natural ground turkey, 85% lean. This pound of ground turkey is $1.89. I don't know where you're finding a pound of turkey for $1.89. I think low end's like $3.29. So it's frozen, meaning the turkey got killed, the turkey got ground up, they put it in this tube, and they put it in the freezer. It got delivered to the store in the freezer. It came home to my house frozen, and I put it in my freezer. What does that mean? I retain nutrients, of course, but even more importantly, no chance of it aging and becoming bleh, unhealthy old meat. Gross. And they're very easy to do, these tubes. Where did my knife go? I think I'm gonna borrow a knife over here because I don't know where my knife went. And you're just gonna cut it into the half. Cut it right in half. So easy. Okay. There I go. I'm gonna leave that knife on there. Cut it in half and squeeze. There we go. Drop it right out. I'm gonna remove this bad boy because he's got turkey germs. I avoid touching the turkey germs because I'm using the outer wrapper and I squeeze. So I got a little wet from the outer wrapper because it was defrosted. But I'm gonna take that turkey and smash it out and flatten it out so the bottom side starts browning, and make it nice and thin. Now here's the deal. If you're choosing ground beef, because that's, you know, you're afraid your family might know there's turkey in here. Number one, if you don't tell them it's so highly seasoned, they would never know. And number two, if you're choosing to do beef regardless, please go for a grass-fed beef. You're gonna avoid the hormones, the antibiotics, any of the unhealthy diet that they feed the cows here in America way too often. So grass-fed, they're eating their normal diet. They actually have trace minerals in both the dairy and the meat of a grass-fed cow. If you're doing a beef, I also suggest you going light on the cooking. Like, don't overcook it. Might I say the word medium? Ooh. Because it's going to be easier on your gut for digestion if you are not overcooking your red meat. Okay, so while that's browning, I'm going to get my last nourishing, well, I got two more nourishing. The last element is adding in, we'll be stirring in the spinach once that meat is brown. So I'm just going to prep it right now. No wasting time. So grab a handful, a big handful. That, I like to say that's a cup of spinach. So if you're like, oh, I ate a salad and it was 2 cups of spinach, maybe that's what you think 2 cups is. This is my world, it's 1 cup. If I shove this into a single cup measuring, look at it all squashes, it's 1 cup. It might overflow to look like 2, but you're gonna do 1 packed cup or 1 large handful of baby spinach. I seriously lost my knife. Hang on. Here we go. Now, this is gonna look like an herb because I'm gonna chop it so fine. This is not big old long stringy spinach floating around through our ground turkey. I mean, look how skinny. I don't know if you can see those skinny little shreds. Super skinny, one direction. These are not knife skills, so no one better be looking at me and judging my knife skills. I never went to culinary school, don't claim to know what I'm doing. Just know that I love what I'm doing. Now I'm gonna go the other direction. Whew, almost lost my spinach. Better to lose my spinach than to lose my mind, especially in a week like this. Everyone, please keep your mind on you. Please keep your heart joyous. Don't let the stress of the next couple weeks get to you when we don't know what's happening. Okay. I like to say, don't wait for an outcome to receive a feeling. Choose the feeling and receive the outcome. Does that make sense? If you want to be happy, be happy. Don't wait for something or someone to make you happy. So I think all of us can put that into practice this week, especially this week. But how about every week, right? That's a little KJ philosophy for you. All right, there we go. Super fine. Yes, you are super fine, and so is this spinach. You see how tiny I made that? Rock and roll. So even though I chopped it up, it still looks closer to 2 cups. Maybe it's packed still like 1. All right. Ooh, this is nice and brown on one side. I'm gonna flip it. Now when I flip this, ooh, all that onion and garlic is completely coated onto the meat. As said, it's like all one unit. That meat is totally coated. And I'm just going to press the turkey down again. Make it nice and thin. So while this side is browning, I will, at that point, pretty much have fully cooked turkey. The turkey's gonna cook for about 7 or 8 minutes, right? You've got this time to do this prep. You might have time to pour your glass of wine. And this dish, we had 4 halves of acorn squash. We had 1 pound of turkey. So I don't know your appetite or how many men or boys you're feeding. I know they even eat more. They might want to eat an entire acorn squash. Each of those squash that I had, once cut and de-seeded, was around 16 ounces, like a 1 pound squash. So pretty small. If you are finding you have bigger squash, because that's what's available at the market, they might eat just 1, because the circle and hole that you de-seeded out is actually wider and bigger. You'll put more of this meat mixture into it. So I can't really tell you the servings here because everyone has a different appetite. What I can tell you is it is absolutely lower carb and mindful and better on your digestion than if you were to choose beef, and better than if you were to choose meat and potato. We're going for meat and squash. We got this going. He's looking great. Let's add in another nourishing element, and chosen not only because it's a healthy fat for a healthy brain, happy person. Okay, so it's great brain food. but it's also adding a level of texture. So I'm gonna be adding a 1/4 cup of chopped raw walnuts. This 1/4 cup here, I'm gonna drop her in now that my meat is pretty browned. Drop it in, and I'm just gonna flip and chop the meat a little bit more. It looks pretty done over here. I'll show it to you. Let me get it a little tossed around. Smells so good. Chopping it up. Now I don't mind getting this super chopped. I don't need any chunks, right? Big old meatballs hanging out inside my squash. There we go. There we go. I'll show this to you. Looks amazing. Get it all tossed around. Now it's all browned and looking gorgeous. And it's going to be going in the oven again, so you know, if you are doing a ground beef and you're trying to make it a little bit more like medium cooked rather than well done, of course to your preference always, but I'm just being mindful to your gut, know it's going in the oven for 10 more minutes to melt the topping we're going to add on, and that will still continue cooking the meat. So I'm going to show this to you. Get my little hot mats my mom made me. Thank you, Mom. I love them. I've had them for years. They haven't fallen apart yet. Come take a look at this. All browned. You see that paprika turned that ground turkey into what looks like beef. So don't tell your friends and your family that you're using ground turkey. They will never know because we've seasoned it and colored it so well. All right. Now that that is browned and ready to roll, we're adding in our 2 last elements. The spinach, I find to be the very last because I don't want it to overwilt and turn into just mush, right? But we're adding in also Asiago cheese. If you don't have Asiago, this one came from Aldi's and it's like $3 for a wedge. If you don't have Asiago, you could use a Parmesan, okay? That's your pass for the day. And it's about, let's see, 4 tablespoons maybe? I think a tablespoon per person if this is serving 4. If this is serving less than 4 and only 2 or 2.5, however that goes, you can decide. You can lighten up on the cheese if you'd like. But it's about, I can even put it in my little 1/4 cup and see. It looks about like a 1/4 cup. Here we go. Ta-da! You hang out in the kitchen long enough, you know your measurements. 1/4 cup of shredded Asiago. I'm putting that in now and giving it a little toss. Just a little toss. It's gonna start to melt. That's totally cool. Brings a nice flavor profile, but not too much. And last but not least, going for the spinach. Ooh, just get that right in there. Beautiful. Okay, stirring her up. Let's see how we're doing on that timer. Yeah, 10 more minutes for that in the oven. You see, now you have time to decide what you're doing for your side dish. Are you making a fresh salad, a slaw, something crunchy? Are you putting together roasted broccoli? Oh my goodness, this is beautiful. Okay, this is your last chance to look before we stuff this squash. Easy peasy. That spinach is so tiny, right? And once we fill it, I'm gonna take the heat off there. We don't need any more heat, it's cooked. I'm not gonna make you wait 10 more minutes for me to get that squash out of the oven. But when it comes out, I'm going to take a tablespoon, just a good old spoon of some sort, and scoop this meat mixture into the squash and stuff it. I not only stuff the hole, but I let it overflow and I pack the top. So it would be shaped like a mushroom if you really saw the meat versus the squash, like from a side profile. I pack it so it's covering the entire top of the squash. If it's this little, if you have larger squash, it might just be filling the gap, the hole. That's okay too. I top it, and this is just eyeballing it just to cover. Top it with gluten-free breadcrumbs. If you want to skip that step, more power to you. You could do a little bit of flax meal. You could just skip it all together. And nutritional yeast. Again, this is not a measurement. This is, I sprinkle the breadcrumbs. I use this as a little whole grater. I sprinkle the nutritional yeast, and then I top it with just a little bit more of the shredded Asiago. That's just gonna put a nice shield on top of your ground turkey, because ground turkey can dry out, right? As any poultry. So it's just gonna put a nice shield. I'm taking that off the heat so it doesn't overcook. A nice little coating. It's gonna brown in the oven. 10 minutes, you put it back in the oven for 10 minutes. When you pull it out, your breadcrumb and your nutritional yeast and your cheese has browned. So if it takes a little longer than 10, just keep an eye on it, right? Everything's cooked, ready to eat. You're just giving it a little nice topper. When you're finished, you will have, let me get a little fork and taste this with you. You will have a beautiful stuffed squash. And might I say, nourishing, indulgent, but absolutely not guilty. You know you're eating amazing food. You got your load of spinach in here, walnuts. It's gonna take a big old bite. And when you scoop it, you just dig in. You dig into the squash, let the meat come out with it, right? Or showing you this properly. It's a squash meaty bite. And that is spot on. And you could make these in advance. If you have a lot of squash to use, you could go ahead and make like a whole sheet of them, double, triple the recipe. And you could freeze them. Make sure you defrost them before eating. You could just put them in the fridge and let them live a few days and have a stretch meal, or what you would call like for meal prep, if some people like to not mind eating the same meal 3-4 days in a row. So you could double and triple this recipe, use up a lot of your squash, have them saved in the fridge or the freezer, and easy to pull out, get in the oven for any dinner. So work once, right? Double, triple, and then have easy meals here on. Such a beautiful way of enjoying fall or winter squash. I don't know, has anyone told me in the comments yet what's the difference? If today's recipe served you, please share it to your wall, tag a friend. If you're not already subscribed to Get KJ Fit fan page, please hit the like button. And I'll be posting this recipe link below if you want to get on my newsletter and get a new mindful recipe in your inbox every single week. I appreciate the love. Thank you so much for tuning in, and have a wonderful Wellness Wednesday. And stay safe, stay healthy, and most of all, stay happy. All right, take care, everybody.